Today we have a Craftsman 6 3/4 gross horsepower. Okay, actually says that. I kind of questioned that though, but okay. And I know nothing about it except it just doesn't want to turn on. So let's figure out what's going on here. A couple things I've noticed is the wheels are completely gone. This pull cable is not on there, and let's see, the guy that gave this to me, it's his mother-in-law's, so it has oil and it's to the right mark. It's a little dirty though. We're gonna apologize right now, there's noise in the background. This is the weekend and apparently we need to do laundry, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple things again and see what's happening. Is there any fuel in here? There's a little fuel, not a lot. That's good though, because if I do have to drain it, then it's a lot easier to dispose of 2 ounces of fuel than 24. I'm going to connect that cable, give it a pull, and see what we can reproduce. I think I found our first problem. 1, this is broken. Not entirely, but about half of it. And 2, that's exceptionally hard to move. Now, as long as it's not frayed, it should be fine. It's definitely a little dirty. Let's see here. We'll put a little oil on it. This is something you don't really want to use penetrating oil on, because penetrating oil just won't last there very long. I mean, to get started, yeah, go ahead, but I like to actually put real oil. There we go. So now that side's in, let's do this. So this is a good way to kind of extend the life of your cable, but it's not really a legit way. You should just replace this. But, you know, we're going to test this first. As you can tell though, it's getting fairly good now. If I can just do this a little while longer. Seems to just get caught in. And here's the problem with this one too. You can get a cable oiler, but it doesn't really work with these clips. So you'd have to take the clip off and then shove oil down. That's not as easy as it sounds. So we're just gonna work with this for a little bit. Put a little more, and so on and so forth. I'll bring it back. What you can do though is this. I don't know how well you're going to see this, but there's a kind of a cavity in there. I like to take these little bottles, slowly add. It helps if you kind of have like a little air in the line, because then it's really slow to add. But it just fills it very, very slowly. Oh, can't see. About 10, no, like 5 minutes of doing this usually fills it up. As you can tell, it's a little full. If you ever get to a point where it just kind of stops, then you just pull on it, and then you keep on going. You have a second person here. If one person does it and the other person pulls on the cable, it actually goes really smoothly. So you get the point. You just put a little bit on there. It's not like it's leaking everywhere. It's not like falling on the floor, or at least not all of it. So it is going down in the cable. It's just, it's a patience, it's a virtue moment. Unfortunately, that did not exactly work as well as I hoped, so we are going to have to buy a new one, but it is at least working to the point where it is keeping the engine in the on position. It's just really hard to get it there, so I just took a pair of pliers and crimped it down here, and then the handle is holding by itself. There's no clamp or anything on it. So we probably found the issue. We might have carb work, I don't know. Let's knock on wood. But let's see what happens. This is a primer, I believe. Yes, it is. Primer bulb feels good. Yeah, let's see what happens. It has compression. Let's try this again. But we have no starting. So, going to take off. What do I want to take off? Do I want to take the plug out? Maybe I'll just take the plug out. Yeah, I like the idea of a plug. The plug will tell me if it's wet or not. And it's not. It's completely dry. So, we most likely have a carb problem too. Usually cable problems, pretty much anything goes to carb problems, because if it stops working, even if your carb is good, but it's sitting because of whatever caused it to not work originally, caused a carb problem. Wow, why does this not want to screw back in? There we go. For whatever reason, the fingers were not cooperating. So if it starts and stops, yep, so we have a cable and a carb problem. So I'm going to order a cable, and then when it comes in, we will clean the carb. Ordering a cable isn't exactly rocket science, but it is something that if you get too long of one, you're going to have a whole lot of cable. If you get too short of one, then it might not actually fit. So take like a tape measure. This is not, like I said, hard. So that's about 21 inches right there. And then roughly 26. Now we're going to add, because some of it was, wound up, and we just did 2 points. So 21, 26, we have 47, let's say 54. So if you go on the internet and you find, let's say for instance, one that says it's 55 inches, works on Husqvarna and Craftsman, that's going to be a decent one. Now, here's something you do want to look at though. You want to make sure you know where you're mounting it. Some of them will mount down here, and there's a long section of cable that goes up. Some of them are like the one we have, where it goes more towards the top and towards the bail, and it will be a lot shorter. Now, no matter which one you get, that is always going to be the same, but the amount of exposed cable can be different. So when you find the one you need, you need to measure the actual cable, but then look and see, make sure that you're getting the right cable for the stick out or the amount of bare cable, because if you have the wrong one, you could be in the having to replace it, or you could also just drill a new hole if you want. That's a little sketchy. It works, don't get me wrong, I've done it before, but it's not exactly, doesn't scream professional. But keep that in mind. There's really usually only two types, the long ones and the short ones. Just kind of look at the picture. Craftsman's nice enough to give us a model number, so we can just look up that model number on parts tree or e-replacement or wherever we want to look, find the part number, buy it from them, or go somewhere else and type in the part number for the cable and buy it there, whatever you want to do. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to bring up the cable and then bring you back. I got the cable on. Now, it's been a couple days, so to be honest, I don't quite remember if we turned this on. So I'm going to, oh, there it is. Sorry, it's a crap day. I just got a big project that I thought was going to be done, and it's not. Have some starting fluid. That air filter in there was disgusting. But now the cable is on there. It's smooth. It easily deactivates everything. So let's give it a few primes and see if it turns on. I wish I could say I was surprised about that, but I'm not. It smells absolutely horrible in there. Well, there isn't a lot of gas, that's good. Just put a little bit of that in there. Well, at least we know the cable works. So we are going to, how much air do I have? 100 psi in my tank right now. So here's the problem. If I don't take the carb off in its entirety, oh wow, that's even squishy right there, it will not work. But if I do take the carb off in its entirety, it's just going to be useless. Like I could have just taken the bowl nut off and been fine. If this was an auto choke, to be honest with you, I probably would just do the bowl nut, because that, I mean, I don't want to say it's not important, but the bowl seal probably, for whatever reason, I've always found those to survive more than these. Maybe it's because when you prime, you just put them underneath extra pressure. I don't know. Maybe assembly line B that this comes off of is actually a lot worse than assembly line C or whatever it is. I don't know. But I've noticed these bowl seals, these primable engines, are not the greatest. So let's put this on the fuel line. I don't need that much of a restriction. Maybe we'll give ourselves a tad bit more room to work over here. Now, that's just my opinion on it. I'm sure someone is not going to agree with that. But from what I've gathered, the parts are definitely a lot better on those versions, which I guess kind of makes sense. It is probably a higher end motor. Not that I'm saying it's right, but it just makes sense that it will do that. Oh, look. Oh, man, that's disgusting smelling already. If you've ever smelled old gas, you know what I mean. But at least we know the cable works. It's actually really smooth. It's a pretty good cable. New cables should be, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just get one that are okay. So let's take this to the carb station. On my left we have the suspect carb. On my right we have a bowl that's mostly clean. It's not going to stay that way though, but why don't we see what comes out. Now fuel should be semi-clear, maybe a little yellow. But not a lot. And that's completely tore up in there. I wish you can see it, but it literally just, it looks like it was dipped into a tar. Yeah, that's not a good sign. So I've have 100 different videos on how to rebuild these carbs. I'm not going to show this one. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this a good cleaning and rebuild. Well, half rebuild. Just gonna replace a lot of the consumables. Drain the tank. What's in there? There isn't a lot. It's like maybe 4 ounces left, if that. And put it back together, and then we will see if it runs. And we are back. This is what came out of it. Like I said, it's a little yellow. It's not horrible, but it's definitely aged. I put fuel in there that's not geriatric, and new bowl gasket, new seat, you know, the standard stuff. So I usually do show how to do the carburetor, but on this one I didn't want to. But I don't really explain the importance, at least not all the time, of the bowl gasket being in good condition. Especially with these primable carbs, you are putting air into the bowl of the carburetor, and that bowl then gets pressurized, and that pressure forces fuel through the jet into the throat of the carb. If your bowl gasket is not in very good condition, it's not going to seal properly, and it's not going to start properly. In addition to that, carburetors do require very specific pressures in and out of the bowl to really work properly. If it's plugged, it's not going to work properly. If it's leaking, it's not going to work properly. It needs to have the correct pressure that it's designed for. Having said that, let's give it a pull. Don't want to hit my elbow. Oh, my eyes. Got crap thrown into them. Well, it starts. Unfortunately, the self-propel doesn't necessarily work, at least not on this wheel, or the other wheel, I forget. But the person that wants this, I'll ask if they want me to work on the self-propel. More likely than not, because one wheel is turning, the other one's not, the gears are just stripped out, and it just needs a new set of wheels. I don't suspect they're going to want to pay for that, because this is a, let's just put it plainly, a budget-oriented fix. But they're nice people. I want to do it, so I'm pretty much just going to charge them what I have in it, and they're my neighbors, so I'm not going to make a rule of, well, I'm not going to make money on my neighbor. That's usually a general rule of mine. I'll go over other rules of mine later, but your neighbors are not people you want to make money on. That just puts you in a bad area, especially if things go wrong. Don't do it. Okay, well, this is it. Obviously the carb needed to be done, but if the carb was clean, the cable would have made it impossible to actually turn on. And this, the reason why we actually want to do it too is twofold. One, it's not going to turn on the engine anymore. And two, this bail right here will break. It'll just buckle. And those are not cheap. For whatever reason, that cheap, thin piece of metal is just worth way too much. But good cable now. Turns on easily. I think we're set to go. Definitely subscribe. Keep watching. Put a thumbs up if it helped you out. And I will see you later. Have a good night.